Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be executing a rather challenging approach. We're going to be doing an RNAV, but we're not going to be using GPS. We're going to be using a KNS unit. It's going to be an old school RNAV using a VOR that basically interpolates its position to know where we are on the ground. Let's give it a try. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and pause here because what I want to do is I kind of work out the math, so to speak, before we actually execute this approach because it's going to be such a blast. So what we're going to be doing today is, like I said, we're going to be taking the RNAV GPS, but it's not going to be GPS. Like I mentioned, we're going to be using the actual KNS81 for this, and it's going to be really, really challenging because we're going to need a lot of basically fancy math to pull this off. But nice thing is we have tools to make this simpler. So the idea here is we're going to find WeGot, which is pretty easy to find because we know that it's 2,200 feet. Actually, I take it back. It's 2,500 feet at or above. We know that it's a specific distance. It's 6, 4.1, 1.4, 0.3 away from Hartford, which is good. We know we have a Lomas, which is going to be a little bit closer to Hartford, 4.1 plus all of these to Hartford. And we need a way to basically figure out where we are in the air using a local VOR that we basically say, hey, this VOR is no longer a VOR. It's now a virtual VOR, which is going to be centered at the airport. Let's see if we can figure this out. Oh, this is going to be fun. So first things first, I'm going to go find myself lovely Hartford, Connecticut. This is real world weather today, by the way, so I thought I'd make it authentic. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and figure out how we're going to line ourselves up here. So we know Hartford VOR is right here. I'm just going to right-click on that and go ahead and mark that as my point. And we know that regular Hartford is right there. And now you can see that there's a distance here of about 7 nautical miles, and the radial is going to be 156. That means if we were to take this particular position and move it to this spot here, we would have to travel on this radial at that distance to basically impose this station somewhere else, which is what we're going to get the RNAV unit inside of the aircraft to actually do. Now, very, very sharp-eyed people will immediately notice the fact that there's a terrible mistake that we were about to make. And that's the fact that you'll notice that this is 155 degrees from Hartford. We needed to go to Hartford. If we got that backwards, our imaginary radial would be down here somewhere, which is going to be absolutely useless for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some quick little adjustments. We're technically departing ORW here. Our destination is going to be KHFD, and we're doing that via HFD. Now, let's see what happens when I actually punch it. There we go. That's a little bit worse because it does not recognize our thing. We'll do Wyndham, and then we'll do via HFD. Let's see if that makes it a little bit better for us. There we go. Much better. Okay, so we know that we're going to be taking this VOR station at 114.9er, and we're going to be moving at 7 nautical miles on a 334 to this place here. Confused yet? It's going to get better. So then what we're going to do is we're going to superimpose this approach onto that position, meaning we have to identify where WeGot is going to be, and then we're going to use the RNAV as a way to get down to the actual ground there. I did say this is going to be a little tricky. So let's do one problem at a time, as they say. Let's jump back in the plane here. Let's head down to the RNAV units, which you can see right there. You can see it's already on 114.9er. We're on waypoint 1 for this particular usage, and we're just going to go ahead and dial in our particular radial. So our radial today, as we mentioned, is going to be 334.0. I'll go ahead and I'll freeze my plane in mid-flight here. There we go. I don't want that to cause us any issues. And you can see we have a bunch of buttons across the bottom. If I were to start cranking this, this would allow me to adjust my frequency. If I press the radial button and then I crank it again, you'll notice it still is going to try to do it. What you need to do instead is come over to the mode button, which is going to give you your different options. In this case, we've got approach mode, and this allows us to change which number we're actually on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and come over to my data page right here, and now that's going to switch this thing over to RAD. So what we're going to do is dial that into the frequency that we know, or the value we know. So that was 334 degrees. Perfect. Press the data button again, and it's going to be looking for the distance. And again, we're looking at a distance of 7 nautical miles. So I'm going to come over here and press the use button. We can press data again. The frequency is already good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to press use. Everybody's ready to rock. So what we have done virtually is we've taken that VOR station, which was originally here, and we've told the RNAV computer to treat it as if it's actually over here. That means now that Hartford is actually going to be virtually where the center of our virtual VOR position is. Well, it's going to be physically, if you want to think about it another way. With that information, we can now actually set up our approach. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going directly to a WeGot. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come down here. I'm going to actually snap this over to the RNAV page. I'm going to click on the RNAV switch. Now we know, if I pull this down again, remember, our virtual VOR now from Hartford is now projecting this, that we're going to be at 2,500 feet, and we're going to be on a 2 radial to get into Hartford. So I'm going to go ahead and dial those details in, go over to a 2 radial here, and we're going to do our quick sanity check. Okay, think hard for a second. Think hard. Let me go ahead and unpause our aircraft here. Sanity check. Brain. Okay. We know that we're approaching from the east, approaching towards where we got is. We also know the fact that our desired radial is going to be facing to the north. Let's go take a look at our sanity check. We are to the east of the radial that is being generated off of that particular position. So we know, relatively speaking, we are in the correct place. At least we know we're in basically eastern Connecticut, if you want to kind of think about it another way. Another thing that we have going for us is because this calculator can calculate the relative distance, we also notice that we're 25 miles away from Hartford itself, which is actually very, very accurate to where we are, relatively speaking. Now, if you're sitting here kind of working the math out in your head, doing the geometry in your head, you probably quickly realize the fact that if we ever lose sight of the VOR station, that's going to cause some real problems for us. And now that is going to be an issue for us. The other thing you're probably realizing is like, hey, great, now you've basically created an LDA for Hartford. Now, what's your act two? How are you going to figure out where actual we got is? Now, figuring out where we got is going to require a little bit of fancy work on our parts. Now, if you remember earlier, I was pointing out the fact that we still have Hartford VOR. That means if we can figure out how to get from Hartford VOR to we can switch from a VOR radial, see how this is starting to get tricky, to our RNAV radial. Check this out. So I just need to find we got. Well, that's Lomas. That doesn't help us very good. Let's see if I can go find we got here. And that's mummed. Let's go find out. Get it directly this time. What do we say? We got today. So we're going to type in we got. We got nothing. What do you mean we got nothing? All right, let's see if I can find it. W-E-G-O-T. There we go. Nice. So we know that we got here is going to be down here. As a matter of fact, it is going to be on the 212 from the Hartford VOR, which means if we get to Hartford VOR, not on RNAV mode, that's important, we'll get very confused otherwise, we can actually go backwards, do a procedure turn here, you got to go to your job entry right there, flip around, switch to RNAV mode, and then proceed all the way down to the ground on the approach that we need to fly. Did I mention this was going to be complex? So this is going to require a lot of fancy work on our part. It's going to require, if we had dual transmitters, this would be easier. But the answer is we do have dual transmitters. So check this out, receivers, I should say. So what I'm going to do is take my radio 2, pop in 11490, and you're going to see this thing is going to get all sorts of happy. Now, we want to approach Hartford VOR. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fiddle with this needle until it's just centered. A little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. Got it. So to me, as I'm currently positioned, I can tell that if I wanted to go directly to Hartford VOR, that I would have to travel on this particular heading. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and take my aircraft. I'm going to go ahead and bring us over this way. Looks like we're going to need about a 345 is going to be a good amount there. Go ahead and execute my turn. And remember, this RNAV right now is the virtual position. If I were to snap this over to NAV2, you get the physical position of Hartford VOR. And at this point, you can tell we're going to be heading towards it in a moment. So you can see the, like I said, not much to see outside today in Connecticut, but that's okay. So as you can see, we're starting to make our way towards it. And this is awesome. Again, remember, this is the RNAV's projected radials here. Remember that. I can't say that enough times. Because if you don't think about it that way, you're going to get this confused with this. Trust me, this requires a lot of stuff. And I highly recommend autopilot whenever you attempt something this silly. All right, so now we know we are approaching. As a matter of fact, if we wanted to be even more aggressive here, we could even go to a greater radial where we can tell that we're south of Hartford. And the actual Hartford VOR, we can tell we're actually a pretty good distance away. This is actually not a bad thing for us because basically, if I pull out our little chart real quick, that means that our current position, if you want to think about it virtually for a second, is going to be down here somewhere. And the reason I know that is because I noticed that my RNAV, which is being projected off of Hartford here, is to my left, and I notice Hartford VOR is more or less straight north, which means we're actually down here. That's good news for us because we can take advantage of that information immediately and actually latch on to the correct radial we need to be able to actually get ourselves down out of the ground. Everything went better than expected. We don't need any crazy procedure turns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to neglect this now. Again, I'm going to leave it in there as an idiot check, but I'm going to go pop this on. This is awesome because that means that this is now ready to be used, which is good for us. Now, this is where we're going to get panicky. Let's go pull that approach out one more time. So we're down here somewhere, and in about 3 or 4 minutes, so we're going to be in position at we got and start to descent. So where is we got relative to where we need to go? We got nothing. So I know that if I take 6 plus 4.1 plus 1.4 plus 0.3, that's 11.8 nautical miles from we got all the way down to Hartford. Now, the reason that's useful information to us is I can see my exact estimated distance right down here. I also notice the fact that we have an approximate speed of about 159, which is way too fast. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start getting set up for my approach here. We're going to start reducing our power, and we're going to start getting ready to actually do the deed. Let's go take a look at my temperatures. I imagine we're pretty cold right now. Cylinder 4, please. Cylinder 4 is 310. Yeah, we're pretty cold right now. So I'm going to go ahead and close up the cowl flaps there. And we're going to get ready for the party. So now we have to do a manual descent here. There is going to be no fancy precision here, which makes things a little bit tough for us. So because we have to start tracking that radial, which the autopilot will do an okay job at. We need to get to Lomas, which is going to be 6 miles closer. 11.8 minus 6 is going to be 5.8. I can tell you that right off the top of my head. And now that's going to be at 2,200 feet. After crossing Lomas, we need to descend smoothly down to Dan's, which is 4.1 miles, to get down to 680 feet at or above. Now, there's a couple different hacker tricks for this, but what we're going to do is we're going to descend at about 90 knots, which gives us a descent of about 450 feet per minute. Keep all those numbers in your head, because we have just a few seconds before we're going to be getting our actual approach here. I'm actually going to bring this a little bit to the left. Remember, this is an interpolated position based on the reception of the VOR signal. There is no VOR at Hartford. There's an LDA, if you want to get technical. So I'm actually going to increase this, because we're getting very, very close, and I'm not satisfied with the fact that we have not acquired the actual radial itself. This usually means that we're much, much closer to it than we need to be, but that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I'm actually going to square this off completely. We really, really, really need to find that position. Because if I start that party early and we cross that waypoint before we're ready to cross that waypoint, that's going to do absolutely nothing for us. So I'm going to actually go cross it this way. And what we're trying to keep an eye out for is we're much further east than we should be. And what I'm keeping an eye out for is I'm just trying to see when this needle is going to start moving. Now, in the real world, this is a very bouncy needle. I'm actually going to square it even harder. Because you can see we're about to cross we got. We just crossed we got. So the problem is that we're actually at the point that we need to be already. This is useless because the actual point now, if you want to visualize this another way, let me go ahead and open it like this. We are flying an arc. So right now, we're basically doing this. If you see where my mouse is like this is what we're doing. So this is useless to us, but that's okay, because I just noticed that we're just about to cross it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a procedure turn. We're basically going to cross it, and then we're going to do our teardrop and flip back around. See, it's starting to get a little bit more accurate, but again, we're still too close to it. So even though I didn't want to, we're going to have to execute basically a homemade procedure turn here, which is perfectly fine. No big deal. Like I said, part of the fun, everyone. But you can see that we got is actually, again, you can't see it, it's right here. So again, we're just going to rip right past that radial, take a left, fly it backwards, turn back around, and then take it straight back in and use that as that particular point. So the procedure turn, very, very, very simple here because we're hitting this at a nice, clean 90-degree angle. As soon as this crosses, basically we're going to take a 30-degree off of it, which is easy for us because it's going to be right around here, about 210. We'll go ahead and give it a little push. There we go. Nothing like a little bit of victory push there, make things move a little bit quicker. And there it is. 1, 2. And now what we're going to do is go ahead and execute that procedure turn. It's going to kind of come out like that. And again, we're basically going to turn it. Hartford is basically right off our right wing right there, if you want to imagine it another way kind of a thing. And we're just going to go pop this turn in real fast to basically give ourselves a little bit more room in which to operate. Like I said, things like this are just fun because it gives you a chance to kind of work them out as you go, so to speak. And I don't know. I like stuff like this. It's always fun to do a nice little challenge once in a while. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly away from that lovely incoming inbound, if you want to think about it, radial. We're just going to get away from it. There we go. And again, we're kind of doing our little modified teardrop, getting a little bit further. Hey, the weather's a little bit better down here. That's okay. And what we're going to do is we're just going to basically do a power off. That would be awful. We're going to do a power 180 right back onto the correct course here. So I'm going to go pop it just like that. And when you do this, of course, you just have to be mindful. We have gained a little bit of distance here. We went outside of the safe zone, so to speak. Whoa! And here comes finishing up our procedure turn. Oh, that was a good procedure. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. And I'm actually going to come over here and engage navigational hold. That means my aircraft is now using an interpolated VOR radial for the purposes of navigation. I don't trust it, so I'm just going to go ahead and wedge it myself. Like I said, the navigation hold on RNAV can sometimes be a little sketchy. All right, we're good. We're back to business. Okay, so our current position now, if you want to think about it another way, let me go ahead and drag everything again, is right here. We're just about right where my mouse is over this mountain range, and now we are on the correct heading for our target. We're going to have to do a little bit of manual flying to kind of get the last couple bits out. All right, let's go ahead and get everything ready for our lovely landing here, because we have a lot of work to do. Landing light's already on. Systems are good. We'll go flip over to the other fuel tank real quick, make sure everything's running smoothly. We're going to come to our left just a little bit. 13.5. Remember, 11.6 is the magical number. And then we're going to get ready for our approach. Remember, 2,200 feet is going to be our first altitude. So I'm going to pop in 2,200 feet, pull this out. Remember, we're going to be using half of our airspeed for our descent speed. So I'm going to go ahead and back up my power a little bit here. This is going to happen very quickly, so I definitely want to take a moment to kind of get everything all set. Give a little bit of cow flaps. Like I said, I'm going to try to get down to 120 here. This is the hard part, by the way. Everything we've done so far is absolutely, that's totally wings. It's easy stuff. We're getting to the fun part in a second. And the problem with the Bonanza is this thing is just such a slippery airplane, relatively speaking. 11.9. All right, 11.6. All right, we're ready to start our descent. Descent is going to be about 600 feet per minute. Go ahead and pull that. We're going to go ahead and arm my altitude, engage vertical speed, and we're going to begin our descent now. Here we go. Remember our first target altitude, as you remember it here. Again, we're doing this is the official approach. Is going to be 2,200 feet, and it's going to be like I said, 5.6 miles away. So we have about 6 miles worth of travel to actually get there, which is good because that gives us time to get everything squared away. 500 feet per minute would be about 100 knots, so I got to start slowing down. I am a little bit to the right of our desired course, so I'm again going to swing to my left a little bit more to get a better shot at it. Oh boy. What I find interesting is I can turn the radar on here, and it doesn't really do much for me. Cool. All right, we are not getting our desired. It's because we're leveling off at 2,200. That's fine. All right, 2,200 feet, which is fine. We're allowed to do that as long as we're at or above when we cross that 5.6 point. I'm looking down here. I'm at 9.7, so we're fine. We'll go ahead and dial in our next altitude, which is going to be 680 feet. We'll just do a 970. Our vertical speed, we're going to arm it. We're not going to engage the vertical speed. We're going to use a 500 feet per minute, but we're not going to engage it yet. Speed looks good, 100 knots. We got 1 clicks of flaps in already. Our landing gear already down, so we're good to go. Again, nothing to see. We're doing all this manually. For those of you who'd like to see kind of where we are, we got right where my mouse is. If I almost bet you if we looked out the window straight down, you'd see river underneath us, which means we're doing fine. One of the things I did not confirm is how awful the wind is. Hey, there it is. I win. Actually, I got to come to the left a little more. Remember, we're using a fake VOR to do this landing here today, which is crazy if you think about it. Hey, you know what that is, right? So I was a little early. I'm still good, though. I'm going to crack the cow flaps open a little bit more during this approach here. We're going to start getting a little hot pretty soon. All right, 100 knots. Everything is perfect. We are absolute textbook right now. Okay, so we're waiting for 5.6, and then we're going to descend down to 680 feet. We're going to do it very, very carefully. And you can see we are getting a heck of a crosswind if I need that much correction. And again, part of the fun. Let's speak about the misapproach real fast, just while we're kind of doing our approach here. 680 feet. We got 460, but we're going to be circling, so it's going to be 580. That is not very high, but we'll be fine. I see the Connecticut River. We're not going to get lost, folks. All right, so let's see here. 5.6. I'll give it a little bit of a push. 1, 2. Ready for the next part of the descent? Because I'm not. I do know that I need to swing us back towards Hartford again. And let's begin our descent again. So I'm going to go ahead and come off this page. Left click, or right click. I'm going to go ahead and press engage. That's going to get us a 500 feet per minute descent. You're going to want to fiddle with the throttle just a little bit here. Normally what we'd be doing is we'd be timing this as well. But like I said, we're going to be able to do this just the old-fashioned way, which I think is kind of fun. All right, 500 feet per minute, 100 knots. Landing gear is down. Take a look at my temperatures. They're starting to get a little warm. That makes sense. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for our minimum distance, which is 1.7 nautical miles. Now, from a visual perspective, I'll pull this down so you all can see. Let me grab this one because it's going to be easier to see. So we are right after Lomas. We're basically right where my mouse is. The river should be just off our right wing right now as well. We make our final approach here. The vertical speed is not working correctly. at 400 feet per minute. I'm getting much less than that, so I'm actually just going to crank it in. I don't know why that's not working, but that's going to be a problem for us because we need all the vertical speed we can get. All right, I'm going to gently come back towards Hartford again. Again, there must be one heck of a crosswind here. All right, I don't know why I'm having to order 800 to get 500. It must be something on my end. I just didn't notice. Airspeed's coming up a little bit. We have 3.3 nautical miles to go. Oh boy, I hate this part. And we're actually a little bit too fast in the vertical speed there. We need to bring that. Actually, we're actually pretty close, so we picked up quite a bit of airspeed. Get that last click of flaps in. Keep our 100 knots, bring in some airspeed, open the cowl flaps all the way. So when that last click comes in, it really slows you down. All right, looks good, looks good. 2.3. Oh, no whammies. We're getting really close to minimums. We actually need to increase our speed here. Otherwise, we're going to get there before we get there. We don't want to get there before we get there. That little initial thing where it wasn't vertical speeding right away kind of cost us. 1.8. Oh, my goodness. 1.7. Oh, boy. 1.7. 1.6. Ta-da! As you can see, our completely ad hoc RNAV approach worked perfectly. We were able to arrive probably within a half a mile of the normal GPS angle here, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Now, as you can see, that was complicated. We had to figure out where to put our virtual VR station. By the way, our RNAV's about to fail. The reason it's about to fail is because we're about to dip underneath its altitude that it can operate at, because it is on a mountain, but there's a line of sight issue there. But here's the fun thing about all instrument approaches. You still have to land the plane when you get there. So as you can see, this was pretty intense. We had a lot to do there. We had to be able to figure out that procedure turn. We had to do all the radials on our own. We had to do all the math to basically calculate it. And you could see why that approach is just so much mental gymnastics. It's the reason I love stuff like that, but it's also the reason why you have to be tremendously careful when you are doing approaches with that. Like I said, that just makes these things fun, doesn't it? Whee! It's going to sound weird, but I haven't actually landed this plane recently. Whoa, way too high in that flare. Way too high. There we go. That was better. That was better. That was nice. That was nice. As you can see, the RNAV is a perfectly valid approach. It just requires a little bit of work on our part. And like I said, we basically ad hoc to that sucker. But you got to see almost every fun thing that you have to deal with as an instrument pilot all together in one little pile. So hopefully you enjoy, because I enjoy. Enjoy.